אנחנו עוברים עכשיו ישר לאיסלנד, שם ברייקיאוויק מחכה לנו ברנד אוגרודניק, הבובנאי, good, what? Is it noon over there?
Late afternoon.
Hello Brand. It's afternoon. Okay, we are 3 hours ahead in your future. We already know what's going to happen.
Don't tell me.
So I will say some words in Hebrew. I will say some things about you. ברנד אוגרודניק, בובנאי, פעיל החל מ-1986, דמות בולטת בעולם הבובנאות בעל הכשרה בינלאומית במוזיקה קלאסית ופיסול בעץ, ביור ספרי ילדים ובאמנויות התנועה. המנהל האומנותי ומייסד משותף של המרכז האיסלנדי לאומנויות תיאטרון הבובות. משמש כבובנאי ראשי בתיאטרון הלאומי של איסלנד. סייר באירופה, קנדה, ארצות הברית, אסיה וגם בישראל ב-2010 כפרפורמר, במאי, מורה ומרצה בפסטיבלים בינלאומיים, באוניברסיטאות ובכנסים. הופיע ביים ויצר מריונטות, בובות ומסכות להצגות ולאופרות ברחבי העולם עבור אספנים פרטיים, מוזיאונים, פרסומות וסרטי קולנוע. זכה למוניטין עולמי גם בזכות עבודתו פורצת הדרך כמעצב ובובנאי ראשי בסרט המריונטות האפי סטרינגס, שהוקרן בבתי הקולנוע ברחבי העולם והיה מועמד לפרסים בפסטיבלי קולנוע בעולם. אנחנו נדבר היום על כל הדברים האלה וגם כמובן על הסרט Strings. So, Ben, tell us a little bit about your personal biography. You were born in Germany.
I was born and raised in Germany, and I ran away there when I was about 15, 19 years old, and lived about 10, 11 years in the US and Canada, but most of the time I spent in Iceland.
And you became a puppeteer in 2086. Why?
And well, it was this time to put all my interests under one umbrella, which I like to call puppetry. Combine a lot of interests that I've been occupying. I think you mentioned some in the bio, although I could read it or understand what you were saying.
Yeah, you will have to come a little bit closer.
I come to you.
Yes, so we will be able to hear you better.
Hope that works.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Like most puppeteers, I spend my time doing a lot of different things, from classical music, martial arts, learning wood construction, and all kind of things, and also healing arts. And at one point, I felt I need to pick one, and to put it all together, I found the occupation as a puppeteer most suitable to do that.
So the title of our conversation today will be Zen and Puppetry. It's a borrowed title from a workshop, a masterclass you did here in Israel in 2010, and of course we won't be able. Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah, we won't be able to summarize the whole masterclass. But why Zen? What's the connection to puppetry?
Its connection is kind of like a backbone, I would say. We very often get lost in technique or focus very strongly on technique. But I think in order to be able to tell our stories authentically and more strongly, we need something deeper. And that's where the Zen comes in. And once again, this is not a religious thing. It's more like an attitude, behavioral code, and a state of mind that I think can help us to be better.
So, do you still practice martial arts, or it's just part of your? Oh, you do.
Oh, yeah.
You do. As
Daily.
a way of.
Daily.
Okay, so we will speak a little bit about your shows. I will show them. Right, the first one is what I translated it to Hebrew, but the title was what was the name in English?
In English, clever you are. I'll be honest with you.
Clever you are.
The puppets are created after a very famous Swedish author that had gotten into contact with me and asked me to do a puppet show about her work. Here in Scandinavia and most European countries, this character is very well known. It's almost like Astrid Lindgren, you might be familiar with her. So yeah, the show was created. It's for a very young audience, and yeah.
And was that your first show?
No, by no means. No. It's so you're going backwards on your website. We go
Okay.
the other way around. It's
Okay.
no, it's always about 10, 12 years old, but still very, very popular here. I take it out every 2 years when a new generation of kids has grown up, and it's it's a show for the youngest ones, and all the children here in Scandinavia do know the character, so they're very excited to see.
So what kind of puppet are these?
These are raw puppets, rather stiff raw puppets, and they're a combination of rod and string actually, and and they match the look and the feeling as they are portrayed in the book.
Okay. So now we're moving up in time. It's
Now that's one of our oldest ones. This is actually a Christmas story. It tells the combination of the Icelandic Christmas tradition and the European Christmas tradition, and it's also a show for the very youngest ones. So starting with that one. It's a marionette show, very simple marionette that have also one rod in the head, and yeah.
so you will have to come close to us. People are writing that it doesn't sound that well, and it's very
Hey,
hard to understand you. But someone wrote, "We can hear you wonderfully." So yeah. So
okay. I gotta start yelling.
yeah, better. So we will move on to Metamorphosis. This is the show that you performed here in Israel, and it was a major success, and it included different kind of puppets, um, different techniques. Uh, is
Yeah,
this
this is our main like touring show. We spend about 3-4 months a year traveling abroad. Obviously not this year, but this show consists of various individual stories performed with all kind of different types of puppets, and it's non-verbal, which makes it very suitable for travel. And you can see on the pictures they're marionettes, they're raw puppets, they're masks, they're tabletop puppets, and we can also adjust the content of the show according to what audience we have. Normally, it's played for older children, family audience, and but then we also have strictly adult versions.
okay?
So,
So
as I mentioned, it's a vignette show, and we can pick the pieces according to the audience you have to communicate to.
so we will move on to Peter and the Wolf.
Beat the
With
Wolf, performed to the original music of Prokofiev, probably one of with Metamorphosis of a most successful show. Toured it a lot abroad as well, and we have performed it also a few times with the live orchestra, the Symphony Orchestra of Iceland, and others. So that's a lot of fun show and absolutely true to the original music.
אוקיי. אני רק אגיד לכל אלה שמגיבים, שמכיוון שיש פה ענייני וי-פיי, לא כל דבר ניתן לפתור. אני רואה את התגובות, חלקן אפשר להיות קצת יותר עדינים ומחויכים, אבל אנחנו נשתדל. So if you could please just talk slower and louder.
Okay, I'm
Somehow
wondering what can be the reason for this not having a good sound. We do this a
well,
lot.
maybe it's because you're not in the next room, you know.
Yeah, but we do this a lot online, and normally everyone hears us. But let's try to speak louder. Hello,
Okay.
everyone. I hope you hear me better now.
אני מקווה שעכשיו מי שמקשיב שומע. אנחנו מדברים על ההצגות, אנחנו בינתיים לא נכנסים לעומק, אנחנו עדיין רק מדברים, אתם יכולים לראות מהתמונות, קל מאוד להבין מהתמונות מה סוג הבובות. לאט לאט אני חושב שגם אנחנו מבינים את הקו האומנותי של ברנד, כי יש איזה קו שמחבר בין כל ההפקות, שכבר אתם יכולים לראות, הן מוקפדות, הבובות עשויות לילה וללילה התפאורה, נעבור להצגה הבאה. The next one is a story we don't know in Israel, I guess. It's a local story.
Yes, it's a traditional Icelandic story. It's built a little bit on the concept of a ramper sealskin that you're probably also familiar with.
Oh, okay, so in Hebrew it's utzli gutzli. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of like as typical with folk tales, different countries make their own version of it, and we premiered this right after the economic crash about 10 years ago, and the troll, well, it's it's a good example of using folk tales to say something which is even acute. Even though it's an old story, you can adjust them, and like in the lore of good storytelling, you use those stories to bring a certain message across, and that message can change, and thus also the story might change depending on who tells the story.
So all the puppets are carved from wood?
They're all carved from wood, like most on the shows. They're all carved from wood. Everything you've been seeing so far was carved from wood, and the whole landscape is made from wool, felted wool.
Wool, Zemer, okay.
Wool, wool,
Wool.
like from the sheep, like you see on one of the pictures there. It's felted wool and colored wool. So yes, it's a very big set actually. It looks a bit too small, and it's because it's an old fairy tale. We decided to use all these natural materials. And while we normally carve from basswood, linden wood, in that case we carve the puppets from the birch tree, which grows in Iceland.
So Daphna is asking, can you explain a little bit about the making of the puppets, about materials and techniques, and how do you manipulate alone so many characters and big puppets? So thank you, Daphna.
Well, on the picture on the top left, you see a style. Which would be this kind of puppet, and I develop new techniques and new styles according to the show that I have to do. But this has become my standard tabletop puppet. It's carved from wood. The joints are very intricately carved, and I cannot at this point go too deeply in how it's done. Here's a little control system. I have the option of, this is not very nice to work, but I can make the puppet walk. Well,
wait, let's find a better frame here.
You have a better frame right here. I can do this, and I can demonstrate, for example, this character a little better. Put it down. So see, I put one hand here, and with the other hand, I can make the puppets walk. I can lift the hands. You look everywhere. Of course, if I use my second hand, I can do even more things. But it's made that I can have two of these characters at the same time.
So you control the legs through the head?
I control the legs through this control bar. So this would be a hybrid puppet. It's a combination of string and rod. And it's all thought through very strongly, because especially for example, for tabletop puppets, you very often see the hands flip around, and in that case, for example, one elbow is fixed with one string that prevents the arm from flipping around. These kind of thinking, and sometimes complicated, but sometimes very simple techniques that I do expect from especially professional puppeteers to apply, so that the puppets move in a better way. This kind of puppets, this kind of technique, by the way, I will teach in our upcoming online classes, because we're not touring internationally right now and can teach internationally. We decided to use the time to start teaching online. And,
Okay, this I will translate. גם ברנד, כמו הרבה מאוד אומנים ברחבי העולם, נתקעו בביתם ובארצם, והרבה מהם אומנים נוסעים שנוסעים בכל העולם, וגם הם, כמונו, צריכים למצוא דרך להמציא את עצמם מחדש, וברנד עובד בימים אלה על סדרה של סדנאות אונליין. מי שמעניין אותו יכול להיכנס לאתר של ברנד, כבר רגע זה יבוא, זו תוכנה שמיועדת לכתיבה באנגלית, worldsofpuppet.com, ואתם תמצאו שם מידע על הסדנות ודרך להתקשר איתו. אז מי שמעוניין בהחלט מוזמן, מי שעשה את הכיתת אומן איתו אז בארץ עדיין זוכר. So this is another one from the same show.
This type is also used in the same show. It's very often I use puppets in different dimensions. Like this character is from our show Aladdin, and to get the effect of distance in a small space, I often build the characters in different sizes, from that small to like triple that size, and also use different type of puppets. So this is from the show Aladdin that you probably find later on in the show. So here's Mr. Aladdin as a little tabletop puppet also. It's a different kind. That's actually one of the first things we will teach in the online classes, how to make this. It gives also people a foundation course how to work wood, get all the basic tools, the simple tools to start with. And then, just give me 1 second, I will show you. I have another Aladdin puppet here. And now this is a marionette. And as you can see, whatever I'm doing now, I'm doing once again with one hand.
Yes, let me just explain. שתי הבובות האחרונות שראינו מתוך ההפקה של אלאדין, כמו שאתם יכולים לראות כאן, הפקה שהיא ברובה מריונטות, אבל יש פה גם טכניקות משולבות. הנה בואו נחזור לראות את הבובה, כי בחי היא נראית כל כך הרבה יותר יפה מאשר בתמונה. So this is like the Czech techniques with the metal rod.
Yeah, it's maybe based on that, but the Czech technique is just not sufficient enough to do all these kind of things. And the traditional Czech is actually very stiff. And as you can see, this one, although I'm doing one hand, this character is not stiff at all.
Oh, show us the control. You show us the puppet, show us the control.
Oh, okay.
That's much more interesting. Yeah. So who invents the control? Is it you?
I invent the control. Yes. And I will teach how to do this in the classes. And also, if people are interested, you can follow me on Facebook. I have no secrets. Whatever I figure out, I immediately share. So if I spend a few months finding out a technique, I immediately put it on Facebook. But in our courses, of course, that goes into detailed description how all this works.
So before we continue, before we speak about the next show or see some more puppets, אני רוצה לספר לכם שבמסגרת התוכניות השבועיות שלנו תהיה גם חידה שבועית שתציג אותה ג'ינג'ה. סתם שיהיה לכם חומר למחשבה, אתם מוזמנים כמובן לפצח ולנסות לגלות את התשובה. אז הנה החידה שלנו. Wait, hold on with this puppet, because here come Jinja broadcasting live מהמוזיאון לאמנות, תיאטרון הבובות.
שלום! אני נמצאת כעת במוזיאון לאמנות תיאטרון הבובות. שקט כאן ורגוע. כל הקולגות שלי עומדות כאן בשקט מופתי. המארגנים מסרו לי שאם יהיה צורך בפינוי, כולם כאן יפנו באופן מסודר. אין צורך במכתזיות. וזו החידה. זהו פרויקט מגורים ומסחר יוקרתי שנבנה בשנים האחרונות על מגרש חניה ענק בצמוד לטיילת של תל אביב. לפני כן, ב-1924, הוקמה באותו מקום ממש שכונת רוזנפלד. בשכונה התגוררו שתי הגברות האלה. מי הן ומה הקשר שלהן להיסטוריה של תיאטרון הבובות הישראלי. זו החידה בהצלחה!
אוקיי, אז אתם מעוניינים, מוזמנות לנסות לפתור את החידה. אני אשדר את החידה בשלב מתקדם יותר שוב, לטובת אלה שמצטרפים אחרי שהם יסיימו להכיל ולקלח את הילדים, ואת התשובה נגלה כמובן בסוף. So back to you. Let's go back to the shows. Now let's see this. I just skipped one show which was for adults. That was the Old Man in the Sea, הזקן מהים לפי ארנסט המינגווי.
That's correct. And this is a good example. Here's the smaller version of the Old Man in the Sea that I just demonstrated to you, and the picture you just had was the big version.
But as we could, did his leg fall down?
Yes, show you the application of kind of joints that they use for these kind of puppets.
And so we've talked about Aladdin. Wait, this is one, and so this will be
Back to Aladdin. I have something else to show you for Aladdin.
Okay, so show us.
And
I mean, we have the time. It's Corona days. We have plenty of time. Show us as much as you want.
Play with puppets. Yeah, it's like, you know, people ask often if I only work in wood. I don't. It's my specialty. I love wood, and there's a certain feel to wooden puppets. I think that is absolutely uncomparable. The material is light, and yeah, it's just what I prefer for the kind of work I do. But in Aladdin, I want this little puppet. You know from the story. There's a genie in the story, and so my genie.
Oh, nice. What is it made of? It's transparent.
That's right. It's this genie is actually made from plexiglass. Once again, you can see I manipulate her with one hand. And
So when you build something, you have to take into consideration the limits of being a person with just two hands.
I have to do this, or if I'm commissioned to build puppets, I have to take into account who is manipulating. Are these puppeteers, or are these actors? Are these professionals? What are their abilities?
Okay,
But I want to say about this material. This is actually a plexiglass, and you can imagine how it's polished and sanded and rounded over, and it's the lighting design, of course, has a ball with getting effects, and it becomes completely outer world because the genie is from another world. I use a different material for this character.
So I will just switch to Hebrew for a minute. ברנד מדגיש את העניין שכשמזמינים ממנו בובות, זה מאוד משנה לדעת באיזה ידיים הם יופעלו, מיומן, מקצוען, זה מאוד משפיע על הבנייה של הבובה. בובה היא לא כלי מובן מאליו, כן? היא לא כוס שכל אחד יכול לקחת וכל אחד ידע להחזיק. בובה היא כלי שצריך לדעת להפעיל אותו. להפעלות יש רמות שונות, ועדיף שמי שבונה את הבובה גם ידע להתאים את הטכניקה ואת המורכבות של הבובה לידיים המפעילות. So we are going back to you, and we were with the Icelandic elephant.
Yes, this show, we started building it, and I conceived the story about a half year before the international refugee crisis started. Very interesting. That's happened a few times in my life. That maybe that's where the Zen comes in. so quiet and calm and center, and you just hit the right time. And it's a story about an elephant from Africa who misses his parents due to drought, no water, and in a search of water comes into contact with a bird, the so-called Arctic tern, which flies over from Iceland to South Africa every year. And the little bird tells him about this wonderful island up in the north, the Atlantic Ocean, where there's plenty of water. So the elephant goes and travels all the way to Iceland and has a lot of adventures on the way. Animals that help him, others don't. And then, of course, is also confronted on Iceland itself with different reactions, how people react to him as a very strange animal.
It's like the story of Kipling about the curious elephant, like a kind of story of how the elephant got his long nose.
Yeah, well, it's a very different story, but it's a fable, meaning the story just told through the wealth of the animal kingdom. But it's a very, very strongly political piece, told for children and for families and as well.
So a question from the audience: what kind of wood do you use to carve the puppets?
My preferred wood is called basswood. That you can work with. basswood. It's called in the US. It's lindenwood. In German, it's der Lindenbaum, linden tree. This wood here, and you can see it doesn't have a strong drawing on it, and the big advantage is that you can cut it both in all ways. Normally wood you can cut easily in one way, difficultly in the other way. Compared to wood like oak, it doesn't have strong graining. So since I leave my wood very often the puppet unpainted, I just use some watercolors and pencils to give some shadings. So it also visually very, very strong.
Wait, let me open Google. I'll open Google Translate while you're speaking, and I will see what linden is.
Lime wood, it's also called in Britain. It's called lime wood. So lime wood, basswood, or linden wood.
Linden. Well, let's see what Google Translate says. It says what? Tirza. Alelai. Alelai. I don't know. עץ התרזה. עץ תרזה. הנה גם דריה פטרסון עוזרת לי, הייתה מהירה ממני, כנראה עם גוגל טרנסלייט, עץ תרזה. אוקיי, דריה, אם את יודעת, את מוזמנת לכתוב לנו איפה משיגים כזה בארץ, כי אני משוכנע שאחרי השידור כולנו נרצה לנסות לגלף בעץ תרזה. How long does it take you to make? How long does it make you to make a puppet?
That is, it depends on what kind of puppet it is. You know, you can make a puppet. You can make a puppet on the spot with things like this, wooden sphere.
Oh no, we are not speaking about this kind of puppets. Oh yeah, we know this one. הבובה הזאת עשתה פלאים במטמורפוזיס, שוב, מי שזוכר מפסטיבל 2010, זה אחד הקטעים היפים ביותר. והנה זהבה גם כותבת לנו שזה העץ של השדרות בברלין. תודה רבה זהבה, אבל אני לא כל כך רואה אותנו מגיעים לברלין בתקופה הקרובה, כי סגרו אותנו ולא נותנים לנו לצאת, אבל כשנוכל, בשמחה. Yeah.
Of course, it depends so much. If it's something like this, with very simple joints, so I'm a very fast carver, and I have ways of carving fast, also using power tools, which I also will teach in the online classes, so people don't have to be afraid of wood. It's actually easy to start get going. Or if you make something like a strong marionette with maybe 30 strings or more, like the employed in the movie Strings, you know, if you're gonna go there at all today. So it can take from maybe a couple of hours up to a couple of weeks or months. And I have some puppets that I keep adjusting, and I keep trying new things. I keep adjusting the joints, try new level mechanisms. And so, of course, like everything in the creation process, depends how complicated you want to get.
So what was your most complex puppet?
The most complex puppet, unfortunately, I don't have here. It's up in my theater, at the National Theater. It's also solo puppets from Hans Christian Andersen tale. The little girl with the matches, and it was very large. It was almost a meter high. All made from wood. Also, everything hollowed out. Very intricate mechanisms. She could, flip out a match out of a hand and open it and light a fire and these kind of things. I have transformation birds, a little ugly duckling that turned into a swan, and of course a lot of the puppets that we used with the movie Strings were very, very, very complicated, very, very intricate.
So what do you write on your business card? Are you a puppet designer, puppet builder, a puppet manipulator? What will be the first on the business card?
I think the first on the business card. Ooh, that changes. Maybe right now, because of Corona, I would say I'm a teacher. and other times, it's of course performing is my passion, and I spend I dedicated 35 of my year to hone my craft, and it goes very strongly together, the puppeteering and the making.
Have you ever worked as a puppeteer, the manipulator puppeteer? Have you ever worked with other designers' puppets?
No.
So
of course, I've tried a lot of puppets. I've tried them out, but like for example, for the movie Strings, they had started in the first attempt of making the movie. I asked other puppeteers to make puppets, but for some reason they didn't meet the criteria that was necessary for the movie. So I developed a new style, and normally I'm so picky and so precise of what I need that I normally make them myself. But I use every opportunity on festivals and college and in contact, of course, with wonderful puppeteers around the world to see how they approach what they do and learn from that. And it's all about sharing that we evaluate this art form.
So maybe it's a good opportunity if I asked about other designers. I say we because it would be more respectable. I think we know nothing about the puppetry scene in Iceland, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know you, but I don't know. So what's going on, puppet-wise, in Iceland?
We have more than people would suspect. And
you have what? Sorry?
We have more puppeteers than people would imagine in our small island. We have Unima, our Unima,
the organization.
Yes, it's strong. We have a membership of like 30 people. About roughly 10 of them are quite active. We had recently, I just passed on the president to Greta Cloud from Great Britain. She moved here also a few years ago. She's originally from the US, moved then to Britain and is now here. So we have quite a few, and it to our really hard efforts and work, puppetry is getting more and more recognized as not just as something for little children, very simple entertainment, but it has become recognized as an art form. And my theater is actually now part of the National Theatre of Iceland. So we installed a puppet theater within the main building of the National Theatre, and we're very strong cooperation. And we find puppets also now in other like normal theater plays. So there's a big revival in puppetry, like I think in so many places of the world.
טוב, it's good to hear. ברנד מדבר על תחייה שיש כרגע לתחום תיאטרון הבובות באיסלנד. הלוואי עלינו, בקרוב אצלנו, אין לדעת. I would like to ask you about something you said 10 years ago, and ever since it just sits in my head. It's about the difference you see you find between a show and storytelling. And it was you who asked me outside here in our yard, is it a puppet show or is it a storytelling? And ever since I heard it from other international puppeteers that came here, and I'm not sure that I know the difference. Can you help me with this one?
I don't absolutely recall what the discussion was, but of course I think there is often a borderline in puppet shows that it's a puppet show, the whole story told with puppets, or people just use puppets as an aid to tell a story. And there are many different approaches. Like for example, if you go to Eastern Europe, the puppeteers are still called actors, and they might, while they hold puppet on their hand, their face also is very, very, very expressive. Then why do you have the puppets? So
yeah, it's a different approach. Yeah, it's
different approaches, But of course, sometimes like people are there fully visible, and like I'm also most of the time. They tell a story, and then they maybe just take a puppet to make the story more clear. I think it's a question of where the focus lies. In my approach, most of the time, even though I am a storyteller, I might tell the story with the voice, but then I've learned to disappear. Although I'm visible, I disappear, and the focus goes onto the puppet. To elaborate on that maybe a little bit more, we have to look to Japan, where we have the traditional art form of bunraku, puppets. Large, I would say, like tabletop puppets that are manipulated by 3 puppeteers. One manipulates the feet, one manipulates the left hand and arm, and the third one manipulates the head and the right arm. The one that does the feet learns that for 10 years before he might be good enough to become actually allowed to start practicing expressing emotions, feelings with the left hand of the puppet. And only the master that has done it for 25 years, 10 years the feet, 15 years the hands, then you might be good enough to manipulate the head and the arm. The concept that is our Western thinking out of the world, but I think it's very healthy to look at. It shows,
of course.
It shows the capacity and possibility that lies in all the different elements that you don't often see even in so-called professional puppet shows. And also the concept there that only the puppet master that manipulates the head is without a hood, meaning that he is so
more
strong,
respectable,
and neutral that he will not distract from the puppets.
So I would say something in Hebrew. ברנד מדבר על יכולות המשחק. זה לא, להפעיל בובה על במה ולהיות מפעיל גלוי לא נוכח, זו רמה גבוהה מאוד של משחק. זה לא אומר שאני נמצא פה אבל משחק את זה שלא תראו אותי, אלא אני נמצא פה ומשחק את הלא נוכח. While you were speaking, I was smiling, not because you were speaking about Dרכו, it's because I was looking at your hands and the way you move them. Could you please show us something with the puppet from Metamorphosis, the one you showed with the bowl, and that the body was connected?
Oh, yeah, it's because I should be dressed in black and I should have a sleeve.
It's okay. It's Corona days. We can pretend it's black.
See if the computer gets this.
So I'm going to give you the stage. I'm going to completely disappear. No. No, kacha. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a good example of there's no one way. There are millions of ways you can build a very intricate, beautiful wooden puppet carved with many days or months of work, or you just have a little shoe like this and a little hand and so this is how this is done. So everyone gets this. And of course you can make, little shoes out of wood or styrofoam, or you have a little potato or an onion as a head. Playing around.
So there's a question from the audience. Where do you perform? Do you create portable small shows for kindergarten? Like, do you go and tour around in Iceland, or is it about stable shows for theaters? I will just say something in Hebrew. אני לא יודע אם יש סל תרבות באיסלנד, אבל סביר להניח שגם בימים האלה גם סל תרבות הזה נסגר. Okay, so back to you.
So most of our shows start in the theater, at the National Theater of Iceland, and very often with very large, very elaborated stages where we use the whole technical aspect of theatrical possibilities. We have a light designer and all these wonderful possibilities that you only have within theater. Even our traveling show Metamorphosis started off as a very elaborate set, and we toured this once or twice to the Royal Theatre in Copenhagen, Denmark, for example, where the whole crew came along, and then we decided and thought this is way too complicated, and we made a very simple version of it, which now travels in 2 suitcases. We just ask for a black box wherever we go, and a very simple stage, and that's it. And many of the shows, even like The Troll and the Witch or Peter and the Wolf, we have a theater show large original one, and then we have a travel version, which we can bring to schools or take abroad.
So you couldn't understand what the comments were, but they were all compliments.
Oh, nice! Thank you. Thank you.
So let's speak a little bit about the Jungle Book, which I think you practically did everything, but it was not for your theater, it was for the Polish theater.
Yes, the Jungle Book was a production I was asked by the Arlekin Theater in Łódź, Poland, which is probably one of the best equipped theaters for marionette work anywhere in the world, as far as I know. And they asked me to write and direct the show. And he asked me to do whatever I want to do. I have a great idea. So if you ask me that question, I go for it. And I had performed at the theater, so I knew the possibilities. So what I decided to do is I attempted to create for the stage what we had attempted with the movie Strings. So to push the medium of the marionette as far as it goes, way beyond it has ever done before. And for that reason, I chose the story of Mowgli. And of course, once again, in good storytelling tradition, I changed the story quite a bit. Environmental issues were brought in and political issues. And then created a stage, which was a huge 7 feet, 21 feet wide stage. I created a rotating stage with 2 additional rotating stages on top of that existing one. All that rotated around the central pillar, and a little complicated to explain now, but what it did, we had basically a 7 feet deep stage and 2 bridges.
Okay. We can see the model here.
Yes.
This is
so the puppets could walk in way deep into the landscape. They were working on different heights, height difference of 2 meters. So animals all over the place, and going from deep downstage, backstage to the front. Very unique. I think that's never been done before. That's the way. I had 50 puppeteers to work with.
50.
15, yes.
50.
And it was, yes. And they were all very, very busy. And we made Car, the snake, had 10 different control systems, so that when the snake was 8 meters long, slithered through the stage, the puppeteers passed on the control sticks, so we eventually got this wonderful crawling movement. And very ambitious. It was very interesting.
So now it's time to repeat the riddle, לחזור על החידה לטובת מי שיצטרף אלינו מאוחר יותר, אז נעבור שוב לג'ינג'ה במוזיאון.
ושוב שלום, אני עדיין נמצאת במוזיאון לאמנות תיאטרון הבובות. כולנו כאן ממתינים בדריכות להודעה על הפתיחה המחודשת של עולם התרבות, בשורה שמשום מה מבוששת להגיע. והנה שוב החידה שלנו. זהו פרויקט מגורים ומסחר יוקרתי שנבנה בשנים האחרונות על מגרש חניה ענק בצמוד לטיילת של תל אביב. לפני כן, ב-1924, הוקמה באותו מקום ממש שכונת רוזנפלד. בשכונה התגוררו 2 הגברות האלה. מי הן ומה הקשר שלהן להיסטוריה של תיאטרון הבובות הישראלי. זו החידה בהצלחה!
אז תודה רבה לג'ינג'ה. אם למישהו כבר יש ניחוש, מוזמן לכתוב לנו. כמובן שאין פרסים, אולי מסכות, אחת בשקל, משהו כזה. So you mentioned the film Strings, so it would be a good time to speak about it. Let's just see the trailer.
Hal, my son, when you read this letter, I shall be dead. I leave you the throne of Hebelon. You have not yet been to war and been part of the evil that has darkened our lives for centuries. The ancient hatred between us and the Zerets, in which I myself played such a large part.
choice, Gina. Let go of my strings.
Don't leave me, Hal.
No.
It'll be the death of me.
Now look up. Can you see where you end? I end where you begin, and where you end, I begin.
Tango!
Do what I could not. Create peace and justice between ourselves and the Zerets.
In heaven, our strings are touching. It feels as though someone is playing the most wonderful music on my strings, as though they are vibrating. Just listen.
You said you wanted to know the secret? Then come with me.
Okay, so I don't know about you, it moves me when I see something like this, especially the notion that someone really wanted to do a film with the puppets, which are not Muppets. This is quite unique. And let's start with the sad story behind it, because you told me the director eventually lost his house.
Not the director, the producer.
The producer, okay.
Yeah, it's what do you want to know?
Yeah, so why strings? Why the name of the film? Obviously, marionettes have string, and we can see in the film they were quite thick. So
Yes.
probably the
Just to clear this out, this is not my movie. It wasn't my idea. My role was I was the puppet designer. I designed the technical aspect of the puppets, trained the puppeteers, and was the lead puppeteer for the project. The title Strings refers to the strings of the puppets, and compared to a normal movie where you tell a normal story using marionette puppets, the story, the text, the play was the story was that everyone in the universe that we created is a marionette. So instead of hiding the strings, we made the strings thicker, made them visible. Instead of hiding joints, we used different kind of joints to exemplify, to describe the character. And as you can see also in this picture, we have realistic landscapes, and the puppets couldn't walk on what's normal on the flat stage floor, but they had to walk over sand. We had a diving sequence in there. We put them into water, climbing mountains, and in order to do this, I had to design a completely new puppet style.
How long were the strings? Obviously, it had to be manipulated from above. So
yeah, I think on my website I have some pics there how.
Like this one?
Yeah, like this one. Wonderful, yeah. And this shows just part of the tower. This is the scaffold. You can see some puppeteers on top, but this is the lower bridge. We had 3 layers. As you saw on the trailer, it was actually a very strange trailer that we have there. But they're maskings, they're battle sequences, a lot of puppets. And the puppets are about 50, 60 centimeters high. They're often manipulated by 3 people at the same time. So there was always a problem of where do you put the puppeteers to have a lot of puppets on the stage. That's why we had puppeteers up on 3 levers, 3 height bridges.
So did you take something from working on this film into your theatrical work? Because these are completely different medias and.
Yes, well, I used in general, of course, the opportunity when I was brought into the project, and we realized that there is not a puppet that can do what the movie required. I went out and spent the whole summer to rise to the challenge and create, especially this kind of walking mechanism that the puppet can walk over uneven surface, backwards, forwards, sideways.
So let me just emphasize it in Hebrew. מה שברנד מדגיש זה שלהבדיל ממריונטות שהולכות על במה, על משטח קשיח, הבובות בסרט היו צריכות ללכת על חול בתוך כאילו שלג, אבל בעיקר משטחים שהחיכוך שלהם לא כל כך קל, והוא היה צריך למצוא, הנה הוא מראה לנו, ממש ברגע זה, הוא מראה לנו את המנגנונים שהוא היה צריך להמציא בין היתר כדי לפתור את הבעיות האלה. Back to you.
Here's the control system for the puppets. To get back to your questions, how long were the strings? This is still the main character, Hal, is here. He's not properly adjusted now, of course. The puppets had eye movements, and most of the time for intricate movement, I had 3 puppeteers on each puppet. One that would walk the puppet, one that would just do the hands, and one would do additional eye movements and things. The reason why these extra bundles of strings are here because we often had to adjust the length of the strings depending on what bridges we used. If you have ever adjusted a complicated puppet, you can imagine the stress of that and the time stress in movie making. Now we go from a 3-meter bridge to a 5-meter bridge. The longest strings were 5 meters. We manipulated the puppets on 5-meter strings. And
they were marionettes all the time, just marionettes, not duplicates or manipulated from other. Because in some other films, like Being John Malkovich, there's this puppet who dances and well, puppeteers get to see that it's not a real marionette, it's a human disguised as a marionette when he does these flip-flops.
No, that's incorrect. That is a marionette.
אוקיי, אז כרגע הוא אמר לי שהוא טועה. נראה לי אני אסגור את השידור.
Of course, the bowling was shot backwards.
Okay, so now we know. We didn't have to push you hard to find the secrets of another movie that you didn't participate in.
No, I didn't know, but of course, no, I know.
So it's about time to speak about your last show, which is the Puppet Master, that one. And before we speak about the theatrical piece, you said earlier at the beginning when I asked you to talk about your personal biography, you said I escaped from Germany. And in a way it connects to the show, so do explain.
It's a little odd to say escape from Germany because, today reality of refugees escaping direct war and hunger and famine, and I was not in any of that positions. I think I grew up very privileged compared to those people that are refugees today. But I was born 15 years after the war ended, and there was a lot of turmoil in Germany. All the guilt, the shame, the unhealed traumas, the wounds created an atmosphere that I didn't feel very comfortable in the long run. I was looking for something else. They're deeply influenced by the 60s and the movement of the United States. I just I ran away.
and this all connects to that show now.
Yes, it does. Yes, the Puppet Master tells it's very much an autobiographical piece. Although of course the main hero of the story, that's me with a beard. I grew a beard for the show and different glasses to kind of bounce off. He's called Günther. But all the stories that he tells and what he talks about is really from either my parents or my friends' parents, and from my environment I grew up with. And the story is that this Günther is a German puppeteer that went to Iceland many years ago, kind of just to get out of Germany and leave all this behind. But then past catches up with him, and he's in a state of what's in Japanese called hikokomori. He's self-chosen isolation. Hikokomori is a psychological state where first discovered in Japan, where people cannot handle the new society and the impact of the surroundings, so they lock themselves up. And this puppeteer Günther, he lives in his workshop, living room, bathroom, kitchen, everything in one. And he's very confused. He's become a borderline personality. He just communicates with and through puppets. And he has also gotten an eviction notice, because in Iceland, the tourism, all these workshops going to be turned into a hotel. He has to leave, but where can a person like him leave? So he attempts to, as you see on this picture, to make this wooden puppet that is an older version of himself, give him wings, and he wants to fly away through the puppet. In the course of the story, he recapitulates stories that he heard from his parents, his own sexual abuse. So a lot of very heavy-duty, very deep, very rough stories that he contemplates.
Oh, here's someone texted in English. זה הרגע להגיד שמי שירצה אחר כך לכתוב לברנד מוזמן להמשיך בדף הפייסבוק, רק לכתוב את השאלות באנגלית, כי אני לא אהיה שם כדי לתרגם, והוא ישמח לענות. וגם באותה הזדמנות, תודה רבה גם על הערות מהסוג הזה, אנחנו כמובן נשתדל ללמוד ולהשתפר, אבל אני חושב שאפשר גם בלי. תודה. Okay, so let's see some of the show. I need to drink. How long did it take you to put up this show?
It took me 15 years.
15 years. And why is that?
Because it is such an work. You have to be ready to do this. Also,
So is it your story? I mean, is it about you?
in a way, yeah. Say that. Wait. If I would have not. There's some very strange with right now. I hear.
Yeah, it comes and goes.
I spent 30 years of my life consciously look at my family's past, world history, confronting myself with sexual abuse and all the traumas my parents went through. And I think people so head up for sure.
Yes.
I had to work with it before I was ready to do this. Had I not done this, I probably would be portraying in this show. Half crazy. Also waited for my parents to pass away. It was the beginning. We had went to school as a 15, 16-year-old boy. My mom was younger than that. Things were never talked about, and we know psychologically, what the parents' traumas, they don't heal them, work them through. They just pass on in form of, I call it the German backpack, to the next generation. And a lot of my friends starting now to look at these backpacks as finally in the final days, months of especially my father's life, we start talking a lot of things that they never talked about. After the trauma of the war, they were just so traumatized, and everything was in rubbish and broken down. They just did this and start again, try to raise a family, and there were a lot of things I never knew about. I found out much later because I just found them out because I did research and asked, and even in the state of dementia when my dad, before he passed away. Last year he started getting dementia, and I spent the last 2 weeks with him. He was dying, and he all of a sudden started screaming, crying help, and cried mama. And I found out that from my grandma, his mom was killed by the Nazis. There's this shadow sequence where someone is injecting a syringe into a lady's head. That's my grandma. She was killed by the Nazis because he had mental problems. I also found out that my dad was lost in action. 17 years old. I found a handwritten letter by the lieutenant of the army that, sorry, your son is lost in action. We don't know where he is. And maybe one reason why my grandma got crazy. I don't know how I would react if I would hear that about my kids. So I also found out that my father was gay. And fine with me. But if during Nazi time he would have been killed on the spot, or sent to Auschwitz right away, but you can imagine all these things, what impact they had on the next generation of my life, and because I believe so strongly in healing old wounds, that we have to break the cycle. And puppetry and theater, of course, is a fantastic way of doing this, addressing issues. The metaphoric language of the puppet is so strong, and it took me 15 years from the conception of the piece to bring it up on stage.
So who did you do the show for? For yourself? For your parents? For whom?
For everyone. It's considering on myself. I said, I worked these things before. Otherwise, I would have just thrown up on stage. You don't want to do that. You want to be very precise and very clever about how you address an issue. But the show is dedicated to my parents that are now deceased, and to my children and my grandchildren, and to the world, which is in utter need of dealing with wounds and stopping this endless repetition of these kind of things. We have to look at the past, and break the cycle. We have to break the cycle, and that's my sincere effort. That's my responsibility, as an artist.
So Avital is writing to us, amazing, Ilan, close him and say in Hebrew, like invite him to the 2021 festival. We have to see that show, that comment. So if you can just sign here, and here, I will give you a pen. And we will hopefully see you in Israel. So we're about to finish our conversation. I mean, it was more than an hour, and although someone texted that it was exhausting, it wasn't exhausting for me. I think it's time to reveal the answer to the riddle. So who were these two ladies that I showed? So these are שתי הגברות האלה הן כמובן פרידה וגולדינה רובינזון. הן היו ראשונות הבובנאיות בארץ ישראל, הם הופיעו תחת הכותרת תיאטרון הבובות, זה היה השם שלהם. הם הופיעו בשכונת רוזנפלד בתל אביב על שפת הים, כשהקונספט היה אחת מהן מנגנת בפסנתר מתוך הדירה, והשנייה מבחוץ מפעילה בובות בסוכה ליד הבית. הם קנו את פרסומן ברמה הבינלאומית, מכיוון שבעברן הן היו גרמניות, כמו ברנד, גם הם ברחו מגרמניה לאנגליה, מאנגליה הם עלו לארץ. בארץ הם ניסו להתפרנס ממוזיקה, לא הצליחו, הפכו להיות בובנאיות, ואז אויה הם גילו שפוצ'יני הלחין את טורנדות, והם טענו שהן אלה שהלחינו אותו, וזה הגיע לעיתונות העולמית. הם כבר היו מבוגרות מדי בשביל לנסוע לאמריקה כמו שהציעו להם ולטבוע את כבודן, והפרשה נשארה עלומה. הם זכו להרבה מאוד קיתונות של בוז, אבל ב-2015 הם מוזכרות יצא דיסק של אחד הביצועים, ושם אחד מחוקרי המוזיקה המפורסמים יותר בעולם, מייקל ניה, מציין שם את הסיפור הזה. זאת אומרת, הסיפור לא נשכח. לנו כמובן חשוב שהם היו בובנאיות, ראשונות הבובנאיות, והחושה שהייתה להם על חוף הים הייתה בעצם תיאטרון הבובות הקבוע הראשון בישראל. So Bernd, now it's time to thank you for your time. We had some sound problems, but I think for the ones who stayed and the one who listened, it was very interesting and moving. So really thank you.
Thank you, Ilan. I think you did a fantastic job. I can do quite a bit of these podcasts.
I tried.
And no one has put so much effort into that, getting the videos in and websites. And so really well done, Ilan. Congratulations. This will be a fantastic series that you're creating there. Thanks for everyone checking in. I give my love and regards from Iceland to Israel. Once again, if you have interest in learning about more what I work and what I do, and if you want to learn how to make these puppets, go on my website, leave your email, then you get updates, and we will start probably sooner than I expected myself with these classes. And best regards. Find me on Facebook. If you have questions, you can write them to me. I will answer. And wish you all the best.
Thank you. So just stay with us. I will say let's see some comments. Yeah, thank you, charming man, and thank you so much here. This is in English, so I will, this in Hebrew, this is in English, so you can understand it as well. And switching back to Hebrew, בשבוע הבא, ב5 לאוגוסט, המפגש שלנו הוא יהיה שומרי המסכות, עם אביטל מנור פלג, חיים אבוד, וגם ג'ינג'ה תהיה פה עם החידה, ואורחת מפתיעה שתהיה קשורה לחידה. אנחנו מסיימים. אני רוצה להגיד תודה רבה לכל צוות המרכז, אבל אני אכבד את הבא. למה יש לי רק שתי ידיים? רגע, לא ככה. יותר מדי. מי זה? מה זה? זה בתגובות. תוריד, של מי? אז אוקיי, נעלה עוד תגובה אחת שנמצא. הדס, איפה? התגובה שלך לא יורדת לי. אוקיי, אז אני אגיד כבר בעל פה, תודה רבה לצוות מרכז תיאטרון בובות, תודה רבה לחברה לבידור ובילוי, תודה רבה לעיריית חולון, ותודה רבה מיוחדת לבת חן שפירא וכפיר בולוטן שהחזיקו לי את היד, את שתי הידיים, ודאגו לזה. אני אנסה להיפטר מהבאנר הזה כי הוא מעצבן אותי, אי אפשר לסיים ככה. כן, אני יודע לכל מי שזה. קיצור, תודה רבה לכולם, אני אסדר פה את הבלגן. Thank you, Bernd, and goodbye.